Hey there, friend. Are you struggling to find a meal prep that is both doable and satisfying? I've got you covered this week with a protein-packed breakfast, a comforting dinner, some fruit and veg prep, and even some chocolate chip cookies. Hey friends, I'm Danielle. I'm a registered dietitian who's passionate about helping you fuel your life with real foods and no guilt. Cook along with me and let's make your week easier and tastier. Let's get started. We are going to start with our veg prep because almost every recipe that we're gonna make together today includes them. So I got a great deal on these peppers at Aldi yesterday, so I'm really excited about that because we love bell peppers. I just have the bowl of my salad spinner. I don't need the spinning part, but this just makes it a lot easier to clean and rinse them. So let's get to it. Since our produce is clean and dry, we are going to get started on slicing our everything, and I will tell you what we're gonna be making today. So for breakfast options, that's something that both my husband and I struggle with during the week. So we are going to make these delicious high protein breakfast biscuits. The recipe is from the blog called Jen Eats Good, and I will have that linked in the description box. But they have peppers, ground chicken or ground turkey, and feta cheese, and they are so good. There's a base of almond flour. We are not gluten-free in our house, but all of her recipes are gluten-free because she eats that way. But they are just so good and they last very well in the fridge and freezer, so it's a great thing to meal prep. Another thing we're doing is we are prepping our dinner for tonight. We're gonna do a Cajun smoked chicken tortellini bake because we have a bunch of smoked chicken left over from a couple weekends ago in the freezer. And so I thought that might be a fun way to use that up. And just as I'm thinking about it, I love mini cucumbers, as I'm sure so many of you do as well, especially for snacks. But did you know that there is an enzyme in the stem end? The enzyme is called cucurbitacin, and it rapidly deteriorates the cucumber once it's off the vine. So the most important thing to do with your cucumbers, besides, of course, washing your produce when you get it home, is to, if you do nothing else, just chop off that stem end because that'll keep your cucumbers lasting so much longer than they would have normally. Also, I know I'm kind of waving this around, so sorry if I'm giving any of you anxiety. For breakfast, we might make 2 recipes if we get to it. There's also another recipe that we love for Greek yogurt waffles that is incredibly delicious. And so hopefully we'll get to that later as well. For lunch prep this week, like I said, we have a bunch of leftover smoked chicken. So I thought it might be a good idea to use that for a chicken salad. That sounds really delicious. So I grabbed some grapes from the store and celery and pecans because that's what we love in our chicken salad. And so we'll be meal prepping that as well. And for a sweet treat, because no meal prep is complete without a sweet treat, we are gonna make a batch of the chocolate chip cookies that I love. I've been making these chocolate chip cookies for, oh gosh, probably 5 or 6 years now. And it's the best chocolate chip cookie in my opinion. So I'm excited to make those with you. Now, some of these peppers are going to get used in our breakfast biscuits, and some of them are going to get used just as snacks. So some of them I'm gonna dice up, and then others I'm just gonna leave in slices, and we will slice them if we need them for a recipe later in the week. Now we have all of our peppers chopped. I'm leaving a few of the smaller ones. They all happen to be green peppers, but I'm leaving these because I remembered, thankfully, soon enough that I want to make stuffed peppers for a meal prep later in the week. So I'm gonna put these aside, and then we are going to get working on our breakfast biscuits. All right, just kidding. We have one more thing to chop before we start on our breakfast biscuits, and that is chopping an onion. I don't think the recipe necessarily calls for this, but to be honest, I like packing as many veggies in these things as possible. And because there's almond flour and eggs, they really do hold together pretty well. So you can stuff them with as many veggies as you want, which is one of the things that I love about this recipe, is that you can flavor it really any way you want. And it's a great one to use up stuff that you need to get rid of in your refrigerator. So today we're gonna do not necessarily Italian, but just like peppers and onions and ground chicken. But you literally can flavor this any type of way. Jen has, I think, at least 5 or 6 different variations of these breakfast biscuits on her website. I actually have the stuff to make the jalapeno cheddar version. I just haven't done it yet, and we have all these peppers to use, but I'm really excited about making that one. Every recipe of hers that I've tried has been fabulous, so I highly recommend you checking her site out. I'm just gonna dice these into medium dice. As you can see, I'm not being too careful. We're gonna saute these in a second, so it doesn't really matter that much, but just whatever kind of size dice you and your family prefer. Of course, if you don't love onions or don't love the texture of onions, you can always use onion powder or just leave it out entirely if that's more your vibe. All right, now that we have everything diced for the breakfast biscuits, let's go over to the stove and we'll start putting them together. We are going to start with about 2 teaspoons of olive oil in our pan. Get our stove heating medium heat. Now that our pan is heated up, we're gonna add our ingredients. I just added about a teaspoon of salt to help draw out the moisture and help them start breaking down a little faster. I don't know about you guys, but some of my favorite smells are the smells of sauteing peppers and onions. It just smells so good. All right, so I'm gonna keep cooking these until they're soft, and then we will move on to the next step in the recipe. As you can see, our veggies are a little bit brown and definitely soft. So I'm gonna take these off the heat and put them into a bowl so that they can cool off a little bit. Next step in the recipe is browning the ground meat, whatever of your choice you have. I don't know if I said this earlier, but I'm actually doubling this recipe. I'm gonna use 2 pounds of ground chicken. I have 2 different kinds here because that's just what we had in the freezer. But season as you would prefer to. I'm not sure what kind of seasoning I'm gonna use yet, but I think it's just gonna be a little bit of a generic seasoning blend, and then we will let this cool with the diced peppers. While the chicken is finishing cooking, let's preheat our oven to, I believe the recipe is 400, but I'm gonna have to double check that. I was right, it's 400. There we go. While we are waiting for the chicken to cook through, I thought we would get the rest of the ingredients ready for the rest of the recipe. First off, we need 6 eggs, but again, I'm doubling this, so I'm gonna be using 12 eggs. We also are gonna need 4 cups of almond flour and baking powder. You'll also need whatever spices you would like to flavor the batter. For me, I'm gonna do salt, pepper, garlic powder, and I think that's it. I think I'll keep it simple this time. While the chicken is cooling off, I just saw that it was fully cooked, so I turned off the heat. We are gonna measure out dry and wet ingredients. I'm gonna first start by cracking all of these eggs into this bowl. These protein biscuits are a really great breakfast, not only because they are so easy to prepare, but also because, as the recipe title says, they are really protein packed. The main source of the protein obviously comes from the ground chicken, but it also comes from the eggs. And the almond flour adds a substantial amount of protein and a little bit of fiber to these as well. So I like to grab one in the morning. My husband typically likes to grab 2 in the morning, and it really sets you up for success until lunch. If any of you watching really love egg whites and love to replace whole eggs with egg whites, I have tried that before in this recipe just because there can be a decent amount of fat from the almond flour and the whole eggs. However, I really don't recommend it. It's just not as good. The texture's not as good. And to be honest, it's not as satisfying because one of the roles that fat plays in our diets is that it creates that satisfied feeling. And so we don't want to miss out on that, especially at breakfast when we're setting our appetite up for the day. Now that I have all my eggs cracked, I'm going to just scramble them really well inside this bowl. Hey Siri, put eggs on the grocery list. Gotta love a virtual assistant. Now that we have our eggs well scrambled, I'm going to put this bowl on a scale and I'm gonna switch out my whisk for a spatula. You do not have to weigh out your almond flour, but my husband and I both bake, and we have found that weighing out our ingredients is just a lot more efficient. Plus it creates less dishes. So I love that. 3 cups. We needed 4 cups. In full transparency, I am about a cup of almond flour short. So we are gonna see what the texture of this batter turns out like. I've made these enough where I feel like I can judge whether it will hold or not, but we'll see what twists and turns this takes. After you put your almond flour in, you're just gonna stir it together and then we'll season it. This batter is gluten-free. At this point, it's just eggs and almond flour, so you don't have to worry about over mixing. To be honest, it looks pretty good to me. I'll show you the thickness here. So it's kind of like a thick pancake batter or like a cornbread batter if you've ever made cornbread. And I do think there's gonna be enough to cover our peppers and chicken. So we're gonna season this and let those cool for a little bit longer because we don't wanna scramble our eggs. Oh, I forgot to put the baking powder in. Let's do that real quick. So one recipe calls for 2 teaspoons, and then I am doubling this. Like I said, don't have enough almond flour. So I think what I'm gonna do is just do 3 teaspoons of baking powder because I don't want that weird leavening taste. Y'all, I can't believe I forgot one of the most important ingredients in this recipe, and that's the feta cheese. We absolutely love feta cheese here. Clearly, we buy it at Costco, but it is one of my very favorite parts of these breakfast biscuits. So I was just looking in my seasoning cabinet and I found this pizza sprinkle from Trader Joe's. So I think along with the blend and the garlic powder, I'm gonna put a little bit of this in because I think that will be good. I'm gonna link 2 different of Jen's recipes for these. She actually does, one of her newer ones is a pizza one. So that uses Italian sausage instead of ground chicken. But we're gonna try this and I think it's gonna be really good. I ended up putting about 2 tablespoons of the pizza seasoning or pizza sprinkle, and then I put about 1 tablespoon of the blend. I decided to skip the garlic because there's garlic in both of those things. And while we love garlic around here, I also put garlic powder in the chicken. So we don't want it to be too garlicky, especially if we're eating this first thing in the morning. Now's the time when we get to add all the fun mix-ins. It's like we're at Cold Stone, but we're making a savory protein-packed breakfast. So we're gonna start off with our feta cheese. We need about 2 cups of feta cheese. So I'm just gonna eyeball it. It's gonna be most of what I have left of this container, but that's okay. Love feta cheese. We're also gonna put in our peppers and onions. They're still a little warm, but that should be okay. We just didn't want them to be too hot. So we will mix all this together and then add our chicken. I think there's gonna be plenty of batter to pull these together. Honestly, you could stop here and make it vegetarian, just eat these as is. I think that would be incredibly delicious. But we did cook all this chicken, so let's add that in too. A single recipe for me typically makes about 12 biscuits. So I will expect to get about 24 biscuits since I'm doubling the recipe. Of course, it definitely depends on the size of the biscuits that you make. Oh my gosh, I think these are gonna be so good. I'm so excited. I just realized I have this container of super greens that I got on an amazing deal at Sprouts, and we couldn't use them in time. But you know what? This is a great application because we can just crunch them in and we don't even have to chop them. They'll just crunch since they're frozen. If you wanna take the stems off, you are more than welcome to. I'm not gonna take the time to do that today because I don't mind them. But if that's something that you and your family don't enjoy, you are more than welcome to take the stems off of the leaves before you put them in. I'm gonna stir these in before I add any more because I'm honestly not sure if they're all gonna fit. Ooh. This is the biggest bowl I have in my kitchen, but right now I wish I had a bigger bowl. Oh my gosh, this looks so good. I wish you guys could smell it. I love that pop of green. Oh my gosh. And it's just gonna add a little bit of moisture to the biscuits. Of course, add some micronutrients and nutrition, which we love around here. I think I'll be able to fit. They're thawing really fast, so it's getting harder for me to crunch them. That's okay. I'm down almost to the last few and they're gonna shrink up and do that typical greens disappearing act in the oven. So you'll barely even notice them. I'm so excited I could use something else from my freezer. It is a huge blessing to be able to have a full freezer, but it is also really great to be able to use stuff up. I'm gonna get these stirred in and clean up a little bit and then we can scoop these and get them in the oven. We have a parchment lined baking tray here and we also have a cookie scoop. These are incredible if you like making cookies or even waffles or anything like that. These are a lifesaver. This is a 3 tablespoon scoop for reference. So all I'm gonna do is scoop these out. I do 2 scoops per biscuit just to make sure that they're good size. These will not spread, so you can put them fairly close together. These biscuits will stay in the shape that you put them in. So if you want them in a specific shape, make sure to shape them that way before you put them in the oven. Here is our finished scooped tray of biscuits. Jen typically tops these with more shredded cheese, but to be honest, we don't have more shredded cheese right now, and I love the feta inside. That's my favorite part. So I think I'm just gonna leave these as is. Speaking of things that we are lacking, I just realized by making these, we are all out of eggs. So the chocolate chip cookies are gonna have to be put on hold until another day when I can go get more eggs. But let's get these in the oven and keep scooping. I'm gonna grab another baking sheet, but we are gonna check on those in 12 to 15 minutes. They should be lightly golden brown on top and fully set throughout. It's time for our first batch to come out of the oven, so let's go get them. Yum. I wish you guys could smell this. Oh my gosh. These look and smell so good. I'm gonna let them sit on the baking sheet and cool for about 5 minutes before transferring them to a cooling rack. All right, I'm not gonna lie to you, this is taking a little bit longer than I had anticipated. So we are gonna get started on dinner for tonight, right now. As any good recipe does, this one also starts with chopping an onion. So this dinner recipe, I think I told you earlier, it's gonna be a Cajun inspired Alfredo baked tortellini pasta. My husband has a big day at work today, so I asked him what he wanted to eat and he just said baked pasta. We had the stuff for this in the pantry. So once again, a great way to use things up. I am kind of making this recipe up, so I will do my best to give you approximate quantities in the description box and while I'm talking here through this video. And if I can find a similar recipe linked online so you can have one written out, I will try to link that as well. But the idea of this is we are going to saute some peppers and onions because, as you know, we love peppers and onions. Gonna saute some peppers and onions. We have some smoked chicken left over, so we're gonna incorporate that. And then we're just gonna season some pre-made Alfredo sauce with some Cajun spices. We're gonna mix that with tortellini. We don't even have to boil the tortellini, and then we are going to put that in the oven to bake. I'm just now realizing that this video might be a little chaotic because I'm missing probably one thing from every recipe, almost every recipe. But that's okay, this is real life, right? I am slicing up more onion than I need because I think I'm just going to saute a large amount of peppers and onions. We love adding peppers and onions to basically everything, but as I referenced earlier in the video, we are actually taking tacos and taco fixings to our friends in a couple days. So I can just go ahead and make some of that and have that prepped and ready to go. So we have our onions cooking, and our second batch of breakfast biscuits just came out of the oven, and they are really hot, but I wanted to show them to you. Oh my gosh, look at how jam-packed that is with stuff. I'm so excited, it's so hot. It's burning my hand. Okay. Let's try these. It was very hot, but they're really good. Honestly, I feel like I put a lot of seasoning in the batter, but every time I feel like it could take more. I even put more salt and pepper and more of the pizza seasoning, and I feel like still could even take more. So just be mindful of whatever seasoning you're putting in the batter. Probably double it, maybe not salt, but whatever herbs or spices you're putting in, maybe double it or triple it, because really the eggs and the almond flour are what you're seasoning, and they really are bland. But with everything else, the peppers, the onions, the feta, they're really, really good, and I'm excited to eat these for breakfast. I hope you make them. As you can see, we've moved to a new pan. I realized that I would need a bigger pan when I was going to take the onions out of the skillet, because we're gonna need just a big pan to mix everything together in before we put it in the oven. So I decided to just switch to my Dutch oven so that we'll at least have the flavor from the sauteed peppers in with everything we're gonna mix it in. And honestly, we can just bake it in here too, so I might do that. These are so good, by the way. They're so good. I've missed having them as meal prep. I'm so glad I made them. Look how pretty and colorful. Oh my gosh. So these aren't softening as fast as I would prefer them to soften. So I'm gonna put the lid on them and let them sit and steam for a little bit, because we need dinner quicker than it's happening. So I will check in with you when we mix all the stuff together. Now we are gonna put the Alfredo sauce in the pot so it can start heating up, and season it with our Cajun seasoning. I just have 2 jars of Alfredo here from Target. Obviously, use whatever brand you want, or use homemade. If you wanna use homemade, that's totally fine. I think we'll probably have to add a little bit of milk to this just to make sure that there's enough liquid for the pasta to cook in and to get everything out of these jars. So I have some Fairlife milk here. I'm just gonna put maybe about half a cup in each jar so I can just shake it and get everything out. I was just about to shake this without the lid on. So I recognize that Cajun and Creole are different cuisines. I thought we had Cajun seasoning, but we don't. But we do have this Spicewalla Creole seasoning. So I'm gonna be putting this in the Alfredo, probably about 2 teaspoons. I'll probably put 2 teaspoons in and then taste it. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. Just kidding. I think I'm gonna go all in with a tablespoon because it's a pretty big pot of Alfredo. And we also do have a family size bag of pasta. So honestly, I might do two tablespoons. If you've never had a Cajun or Creole Alfredo before, I highly recommend it if you think you would like those flavors, because it's delicious. We are just gonna stir all of this in. I also added some garlic powder because I forgot to saute garlic with the onions. But after this, we're just gonna chop our chicken up and get the pasta in and then put it in the oven. I have a 20-ounce package of cheese tortellini that I'm gonna put in. Another reason I'm glad that I added those extra veggies is this will make more leftovers. We are definitely a house that loves to cook once and eat twice. We have 2 quart-sized bags of smoked chicken that I defrosted earlier today. So now I'm just gonna chop this up. It's already pulled, so it's in smaller chunks anyway, but I'm just gonna give it a rough chop and then we will mix it in with the pasta. I think some of this is still frozen, but it's all cooked, so it's all good. Now we just have to stir this all together and pray that the pot is big enough. So I can make sure that this pasta bakes as evenly as possible. I'm gonna dump it into a 9x13 pan. Hopefully it fits, but we will see. Smooth that out a little bit. Might need to put some in a different container to save for later, but I don't know. I think it'll fit. Ooh, shoot. Tortellini overboard. Ooh. Y'all, I love this Dutch oven, but it is heavy. I still have the oven on, luckily. I did not turn it off. So I'm gonna cover this tightly with foil and then get it in the oven. And I will let you know how long it cooks. I'm thinking probably about 30 minutes, but we will see. I'll let you know when it finishes. Hey friends, so I just took the pasta out of the oven. It did take about twice as long as I said earlier. It took about an hour. So let me show you what it looks like. I did just spoon some out and take some to Jordan because he is still working late this evening. But how creamy and delicious does this look? I cannot wait to eat it. It smells amazing. Of course, with a traditional baked pasta dish, you could cover this with cheddar cheese. I think that would be the best. But I just decided to skip it because, to be honest, I was feeling like taking the path of least resistance tonight. So I'm gonna pick up this meal prep tomorrow because it is after 8 o'clock and I am ready to eat dinner. But stay tuned because I'm gonna go to the store and get eggs so we can make those incredible chocolate chip cookies, and we're gonna make that smoked chicken salad that I told you about earlier. So I will see you in a second. Hey friends, welcome back to my kitchen. Let's make some chocolate chip cookies. I'm very excited. Also, side note, if you are in the North Carolina area and have Trophy Brewing near you, their strawberry basil sparkler. It's basically just sparkling water. Chef's kiss. So delicious. Tastes like strawberries and cream. I wish I could taste the basil. I can't taste the basil at all, but it doesn't even matter. It's so good. All right, so it is another day. In true Danielle chaotic nature, still I'm missing an ingredient, but we're gonna make it work. We do have eggs, so that's okay. So for these chocolate chip cookies, super basic recipe, some all-purpose flour. We're gonna have some granulated sugar. Typically, I use brown sugar, but I'm all out, and I'm also all out of molasses to make my own brown sugar. So I'm gonna use coconut sugar because this has still kind of that molassesy warm flavor. Some vanilla extract, quite a bit. This recipe actually calls for a tablespoon of vanilla. It does make a lot of cookies. Typically, I get about 36 cookies in a batch. 2 eggs, some salt, of course, chocolate chips, of course. I think I'm gonna put some pecans in today as well, and then 2 sticks of butter that I already have in my bowl. In addition, we have 3 different textural and leavening agents in this recipe. There's baking soda, baking powder, and cornstarch. Ta-da! And just like last time, I'm gonna start by weighing out my ingredients so that I don't get a ton of dishes dirty. So here we have our bowl. I'm just gonna put it on our scale and tear the scale out so that it weighs nothing. We are gonna weigh out 350 grams of white flour. I'm using all-purpose. This can also be half all-purpose flour and half bread flour. That actually gives the cookies really good texture. I'm just not gonna do that today because this is easier. Like I said earlier, this recipe makes a ton of cookies, typically about 3 dozen, if not a little bit more than that, depending on the scoop size. We're gonna use 1 teaspoon each cornstarch, baking powder, and baking soda. So because it makes so much, I typically just go ahead and scoop all of it out, and then I will freeze the rest. So that way I can gift some cookie dough to friends, or we can just bake cookies throughout the week, whatever we are needing in that time. I just like to get my dry ingredients together before I start mixing my wet, because then it just makes the process go by even faster. I do have my eggs sitting out and my butter is room temperature. If your eggs are cold from the fridge, that works just as well too. So you'll notice I will have this recipe linked. You'll notice that this recipe calls for a lot of salt. It calls for 2 1/4 teaspoons. So like I keep saying, this recipe does make a lot of cookies, but it also has a really good salt balance. So I am gonna use slightly less salt than the recipe calls for, only because I'm also using salted butter. So if you are using unsalted butter, which the recipe calls for, use the full amount of salt. Trust me, these cookies are delicious. I'm probably gonna do 1.5 teaspoons, just because, like I said, I am using salted butter, and you also finish the cookies with salt. That is, of course, optional. Typically, I don't do that because we're just baking off 1 or 2 at a time. And my husband actually doesn't prefer salty cookies. I love them, but he doesn't prefer that. So we are gonna just mix all this together, make sure it's well incorporated, and then move on to our dry ingredients. I just grabbed another bowl so we can go ahead and weigh out our sugar. So we're gonna tare our scale again. The recipe calls for an equal amount of sugar and butter. No, sugar and flour. So we have 350 grams of flour. We're gonna have a total of 350 grams of sugar. 200 of that is gonna be brown sugar, but today, like I said, I'm gonna be using coconut sugar instead. So we're gonna do 200 grams of brown sugar, and then we're gonna do 150 grams of granulated sugar. I do also wanna say, no, I'm not gonna use that spoon. Grabbing a new spoon, because that spoon was in flour, and we do have friends that we feed that are gluten-free. So never want to contaminate anything or have cross contact. But I do want to say that I have successfully used gluten-free flour in this recipe. I used King Arthur measure for measure, or 1-to-1, whatever the King Arthur version is called. And I had some of my friends that are gluten-free test it out, and both her and her husband, who's not gluten-free, raved about the cookies. So you can definitely make these gluten-free if that's a dietary need that you have. All right, now that we have our sugar weighed out, we can start mixing everything together. We are gonna start creaming our butter until it is light and fluffy. This is what our butter looks like, and we're gonna go ahead and add in all of our sugar. We wanna make sure to turn this on low so the sugar doesn't go everywhere. Now that the sugar is mostly incorporated, I'm gonna turn this speed up a couple notches just to get it really creamed together well. And we'll keep it there for about 1 to 2 minutes until the butter and sugar mixture is combined and light and fluffy. I'm gonna scrape the bowl down really quickly just to make sure we get everything evenly mixed. If you don't have a spoon rest, which I don't know anyone who does anymore, I recommend keeping a butter wrapper on your counter so that your counters don't get butter and sugar and egg all over them. Now our butter and sugar is thoroughly creamed together, so let me turn you around and show you what that looks like. So yeah, you can see a little bit here on the paddle, this color right here is the color that it used to be, and then this lighter color is the color that it is now. It's just really important to get your sugar creamed into your butter thoroughly, because that will help the texture of your cookies. Now we are going to put in our eggs. That's what I get for being a rebel. Eggshell right in. Thankfully, it was just the whole eggshell, no tiny pieces. At this point, I'm also gonna put in my vanilla. So that's a tablespoon. I have a teaspoon here because I don't wanna dirty up something else, but 3 teaspoons equals a tablespoon. I also just wanted to make you aware, if you have any people in your life that are watching their blood sugar, coconut sugar might be a good option as a sugar replacement. It can affect some people differently and not raise their blood sugar quite as much or quite as high. So if you are not a fan, or your loved one is not a fan of sugar substitutes but still wants a sweet treat, coconut sugar might be a good option for them. So I'm gonna mix the eggs and the vanilla in. At this step, you definitely want to make sure that you stop your mixer and scrape down the sides and make sure that everything is well incorporated, because we are just about to add in our dry ingredients and we don't want to over mix after we add our dry ingredients in if we don't have to. That can lead to tough cookies. All right, now that our eggs and sugar and vanilla are incorporated, we are going to incorporate our flour. So I'm just gonna put this in all at once and then turn my mixer on just the stir, the lowest speed, because otherwise this will go all over my kitchen. I just like to pulse it like this to get the flour mostly incorporated, and then I will let it go on the stir function. All right, I'm gonna bring you over so you can see this. Oh my gosh, it smells so good. All right, so you see how there's still some floury streaks in here? This is when you want to add your chocolate chips or your chocolate chunks or pecans, whatever you're adding, so that the dough doesn't get overmixed. Typically, I would add an entire bag of mini chips. Those are our preferred chocolate chips, but we have probably about 2/3 of a bag. So I'm gonna put those in. And then, like I said earlier, I'm gonna put some pecans in, because we pecans in our cookies in this house. And these are just some chopped pecans, but they will get a little bit more broken down in the machine. So probably about half a cup-ish. This bag has 2 cups. So yeah, I would say probably about half a cup. So I'm just gonna pulse it on stir again, and we'll be ready to scoop in just a minute. All right, I just gave this one last stir by hand, just to make sure there weren't any rogue chocolate chips at the bottom. And now we're ready to scoop. Go ahead and get my mixer put away, because we will not need that for the rest of what we're doing today. Ooh. If you have one of those that you move around all the time, are you constantly terrified that you're gonna drop it on your foot? Because I definitely am. Okay, I'm gonna grab some parchment paper to prepare our pan. I love this parchment paper dispenser. All right, so I have my oven preheated to 375. So that's the temperature that these cookies bake at. I am just gonna throw maybe 4 to 6 in the oven. I haven't baked these cookies with coconut sugar yet, so I definitely wanna see how they turn out, but the rest of them I will put in the freezer. You know what? I think I'm only gonna do 4, because I want to give them room to be able to spread. Oh my gosh, I'm ruining the cookies. Oh my goodness, this is a disaster. It's okay. Here we go. All right, so I'm gonna get these cookies in the oven just so we can do a taste test, and Jordan and I can have one after dinner this evening, but they will bake for about 12 minutes and we're gonna scoop the rest out in the meantime. Hey Siri, set a timer for 12 minutes. All right, now for this pan, I'm not gonna put any parchment down on it, because I find that I can fit more cookie dough on the pan when I don't do that. And when they're fully frozen, it doesn't really matter. They come off the pan fine for me. But if you find that cookie dough typically sticks when you freeze it, obviously please prepare the pan in the manner that you would like to. So I'm gonna get these all scooped out, and then I will let you know how many I get out of this batch when I'm done. Well, as you can see, I've scooped out this whole sheet, which is 35 cookies. And I'm still have more to scoop. So there's 4 in the oven. So I would say this makes 40 to 43 cookies. This is a 1.5 tablespoon scoop. So obviously this depends on your scoop size, but it does make a lot of cookies, which is great. So I'm gonna go throw these in the freezer. The thing I love about this chocolate chip cookie recipe, besides the fact that it is just straight up incredibly delicious, is that you don't need to chill it. I think it's probably because of the cornstarch in this recipe. The cookies hold together beautifully, even without a chill. I know most other chocolate chip cookie recipes and cookie recipes in general require a minimum of 2 hours in the refrigerator before you scoop them and bake them, which is understandable because the spread of the cookie really depends on the butter's temperature when it goes in the oven. Because if it's too warm, you will experience flat cookies when they're not supposed to be flat. But this cookie doesn't have that problem. I think we can get one more out of here. Some chocolate chips still left in the bottom, and we do not want to leave any chocolate chips behind. I definitely have those cookies that are the last of the batch where I'm literally scraping the bowl and there's one chocolate chip in it or one pecan. But I don't want to leave any cookie dough behind. Our cookies just came out of the oven, our first batch, and look at how perfect. That's why I love using a cookie scoop. It's just so easy to get really pretty cookies. But oh my gosh, they smell amazing. I really wish you could smell this. All right, let's taste it. These cookies are so good. And as you can see, I didn't put extra salt on top. I don't really think you need it. If you love the visual of flaky salt, go for it. But there's such good salt balance in these cookies, even outside of that. So good. Also, I don't really miss the brown sugar. I was kind of curious how the texture of these cookies would turn out without the brown sugar, because the molasses in the brown sugar really lends to a chewy cookie, which I love a chewy cookie. And these are still chewy. They're a little bit more on the cakey side, but I'm good with that. These are delicious. Now, I know you might be wondering, Danielle, you're a registered dietitian. Why are you including chocolate chip cookies in your meal prep? And I will tell you, friend, because you should have something that brings you joy, and it doesn't have to be chocolate chip cookies. If chocolate chip cookies don't bring you joy, then pick whatever your favorite thing is. But we don't have fear around food around here, and we don't judge other people's food choices, and it is totally okay if you want to have a cookie every once in a while. So good. Please make these. While I'm thinking of it, I wanted to let you know that I was able to scoop out another 6 cookies. So I was able to get 45 cookies, which is wild. Again, it's totally dependent on your scoop size. So if you like a larger cookie, you'll get about 23 cookies out of it. But still, that's a good amount of cookies. So definitely make this if you're having a party, or like I said, if you want a few bags of cookie dough in your freezer. Now we're going to move on to the last thing we're gonna make, which is our chicken salad. So we have some celery, grapes, mayonnaise. Typically, we are a Duke's household. Typically, I split that with half of Greek yogurt, but we are running low on Greek yogurt right now, so I'm just gonna use mayonnaise and then some spicy mustard, and of course, I thawed some shredded chicken earlier today. So let's get going. This is gonna be a super basic, easy chicken salad. I'm just gonna put the chicken into my bowl, and then I'm going to, these grapes are actually pretty small for grapes. So to be honest, I'm probably just gonna throw them in there whole because most of them are pretty small. The average size is about this size, which is about half of a normal grape anyway. So I'm just throwing probably 3 or 4 half handfuls in there. Those grapes are so good. We've had them for probably 5 or 6 days now, and they're so crunchy. And then I'm gonna chop up some celery, and then I'm just gonna make my dressing just in this one bowl. Since we're just mixing mayonnaise and mustard together, I'm just kinda gonna eyeball it in the bowl. We can taste and correct as we go. So I'm just splitting these celery ribs up a little bit so that we don't have huge pieces of celery, but we do really like celery in our chicken salad. This is, like I said, just kind of a basic plain chicken salad, but I would love to know what your favorite ways to make chicken salad are. Oop, celery overboard. I think I'm gonna do a couple more ribs of celery. I would suggest putting a wet paper towel underneath your cutting board. Do as I say, not as I do in this scenario. So you definitely don't want your cutting board jiggling all over the place, especially if you have a sharp knife. All right, so we have, I would say probably about 3/4 of a cup of chopped celery, along with a cup and a half maybe of grapes. But we did leave those whole, remember, no chopping. So I'm gonna start small with my dressing because I definitely don't want an overdressed salad, chicken salad, but I think I'm gonna start with, that's probably about half a cup of mayonnaise. And we're probably gonna do maybe like 2 tablespoons. This is spicy mustard. Just gonna mix that. Probably could have picked a bigger bowl for this. And of course, chicken salad always tastes better after a couple of hours of sitting. So while we definitely will taste it here in a second, once I get it all mixed up, it's gonna taste even better in a couple hours or tomorrow. I feel like I'm gonna be able, I think I'm gonna need a little bit more mayo. Sometimes there can be big pockets, so you just need to keep mixing. I haven't made a classic chicken salad like this in so long. I'm excited to have it. I was at Costco earlier today, and both my husband and I love a chicken salad croissant. So now I'm regretting not getting any croissants at Costco. I think we might need just a touch more, but I'm gonna taste it first to see what the texture is like. Since we left those grapes whole, they won't really be releasing any juice, which I think is fine because you will get that pop of the texture of the grape, but it might mean that we need to add a little bit more dressing. If you had a green onion to add to this, that would be delicious. Now, you know what? I think it does need a little bit more, but not a lot. It's almost perfect. You know what? I don't think I'm gonna add any more mayonnaise. I think I'm gonna add just a splash of milk to like thin it out a little bit. We're gonna do just like a splash. And then I am gonna do a little bit more mustard because I like, not a crazy mustard heavy chicken salad, but it needs a little bit more. I also want to add salt and pepper. So it definitely needs salt and pepper. That's the blend from Kinder. So it's salt, pepper, and granulated garlic, which will add a great flavor to this as it sits, and the garlic rehydrates. That'll be really good. I think that's really all that it needed. So we definitely don't want our chicken salad to be gloopy. That is not a good chicken salad. Until there's a couple pockets of mustard in here still, so trying to stir those through. My mouth is literally watering. I love chicken salad. Last week I made a bacon ranch chicken salad. So good, but I love, this is just a classic. Oh my gosh, yeah. I love the pop from the grapes. I love the crunch from the celery, the creaminess, mustard. It's so good. Please make this. I will have the approximate recipe down below in the description box, and all the other recipes that I have made with you, that we have made together, will be linked in the description box. So please let me know if you make them, what you think, tag me, come leave a comment. I would love to hear it. And I hope you guys are having a great day. Thank you so much for meal prepping with me this week, and I will see you in the next video. Bye. Wait, friends, before you go, I wanted to make sure that you had this incredibly easy protein pancake recipe. It is a pancake recipe, but I'm gonna be putting it in a waffle maker just because it's easier for me to do that. This recipe is from the blog joytothefood.com. So just like all the other recipes, I will have this linked. I'm doubling this because I know we love them and they freeze really well, but all this recipe is a cup of Kodiak cake mix. I use the buttermilk. You can use any other kind of pancake mix as well, but a cup of pancake mix, half a cup of Greek yogurt, and then 3 eggs. since I'm doubling this, I of course doubled all of those. I also added some cinnamon and some vanilla because that's how I like my pancakes or waffles. But I'm just using the Dash mini waffle maker and setting a timer for 2 minutes for all these waffles. And these really come out very well. They're not super crispy, but this is, once again, a pancake recipe, not a waffle recipe. So I wouldn't really expect that. But they're just so good and so easy. In fact, today I had 2 of them for lunch with some peanut butter and jelly as a sandwich. So they're just great, really quick and easy to make. Here's one of the finished waffles. And then this day I decided to try storing them in these tall quart-sized containers, which honestly is a game changer. It's so much better to put them in the freezer or even in the refrigerator like this instead of in a gallon-sized freezer Ziploc bag, which is what I had been doing because it just takes up so much less space and is so much more efficient. So I, of course, let them cool completely, but I am putting them in those containers and labeling them because that is very important, even though I probably wouldn't forget what's in here since I can very clearly see it from the outside, but labeling things for the freezer is very, very important. But I hope you try these. They're delicious. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you next time.